Okay, let's take a deep dive into a really fascinating piece of source material you've shared with us today.
Yeah, this one's quite something.
We have this transcript excerpt here. It's from a YouTube video, and it really puts us right in the middle of a discussion about a major and, well, pretty uniquely named defense idea.
That's right. And the transcript features, several voices. You've got President Trump, a news anchor, and importantly for our dive, an executive from Lockheed Martin, a big name in aerospace and defense.
Definitely. And they're talking about this plan called the Golden Dome Missile Defense System.
Yeah, the Golden Dome.
That name alone, it definitely makes you pause, doesn't it?
It does.
So our mission here is pretty clear-cut. We're just going to pull out the core info, the main claims, the different viewpoints, only as they're actually laid out in this specific transcript.
Exactly. Strictly what the source
So
says.
you want to understand what this source says the plan is, what
Mm-hmm.
the tech might be, any economic effects mentioned, and how different groups, again, according to this source, are reacting to it.
Right. It's about seeing the picture painted by this transcript. And, well, it's quite a picture. We're talking a huge potential cost, claims about, really advanced tech for protection, that very distinct name,
hmm
and even a look at how other countries are reacting, all packed into this one conversation.
Okay, so let's unpack it, starting right at the top of how this source presents it.
Yeah.
What is the Golden Dome plan, as President Trump describes it here?
Well, the source quotes him directly, laying it out. He calls it a $175 billion plan for America's Golden Dome missile defense system.
Wow. Okay, $175 billion dollars. That's certainly a headline figure right there.
No kidding.
What's the stated reason for spending that kind of money, according to him in the source? What's the goal?
The goal, and again, this is quoted in the transcript, is to build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack.
A cutting-edge shield. How is that idea framed? I mean, what kind of language does the source use about its potential impact?
It's actually called a game changer in the source.
A game changer.
Yeah, and also a generational investment in security. So the language really positions it as something, you know, transformative, a big leap.
A game changer definitely suggests a major shift. Did the source mention any kind of timeline, like when this might actually happen?
Yes, there's a pretty clear objective stated by President Trump. It should be fully operational before end of my term.
Hmm. That sounds, well, pretty ambitious for something described on this scale.
Uh-huh, very ambitious.
And how does the source say it connects with defenses we already have? Is it replacing them or?
No, the plan, as it's mentioned in the transcript, is designed to integrate with existing defense capabilities. So it sounds like building on or connecting what's already in place.
Okay, so integrate, not replace. Got it. So we have the name, the big number, the protection goal, how it's framed, and this ambitious timeline plus integration. Now, the source moves pretty quickly to the how, right? The tech side and industry's role.
Exactly.
Who does the transcript bring in for that part?
That's where the Lockheed Martin executive comes in. Frank St. John, the company's chief operating officer.
Right. And what does he say Lockheed Martin offers for a project like this? According to the transcript, what's their pitch?
Well, he starts by positioning them as the nation's leading provider of missile defense systems. Then he kind of lists their capabilities.
Okay.
Things like fielded and proven capabilities in space, airborne and surface sensing, and also interceptors to defeat threats. And crucially, he mentions integrating it all together.
So his point seems to be we have the pieces, sensors, interceptors, and they're already out there proven.
That's the argument presented, yes. Fielded and proven.
What specific threats does the source say this system is meant to counter, based on his comments?
He lists quite a range. Nuclear missiles shot from on the ground and in space, he says, and also cruise missiles and ballistic missiles and other threats as well. So it's presented as covering a lot of ground.
A broad defense, and why now? According to the executive in the source, what's driving the demand for this?
He puts it down to significant analysis of the existing and growing threat. He says that analysis created demand for this system to be fielded now. So the source directly links the proposal to a perception of increasing missile threats.
Okay, a perceived growing threat.
Exactly. And this is where the source gets into, the mix of old and new they're suggesting. He talks about using those combat-proven capabilities.
Right, the sensors and interceptors you mentioned.
Yeah, but then he stresses they'll work with all of industry and all of technology companies to knit together this capability.
Knit together. That really does suggest integration is the key word here.
It seems to be.
Does the source get into how they plan to do that knitting, especially on such a huge scale? Is new tech involved?
Yes, definitely. He specifically mentions using new technology. He names things like networking for edge and cloud computing, and also bringing artificial intelligence to bear on decision making.
Oh, okay. AI, cloud computing, networking.
Right. So the approach, as the source presents it, is taking these existing proven components, but using really modern tech like AI and advanced computing to link them up and manage the whole thing as a large coordinated system.
Okay, that paints a clearer picture of the technical strategy described in the source, using new tools to connect proven parts on a, well, unprecedented scale.
That seems to be the idea conveyed.
Now, beyond the tech, the source also touches on the economic side. How's that framed?
It's framed very strongly as a job creator, a major one. The executive explicitly says this would mean jobs in California, Colorado, Alabama, Arkansas, New Jersey, New York, all over the country.
So the source is presenting it as potentially a big domestic economic boost too, not just defense, spreading the work around.
Precisely. He makes a point of saying it will be built domestically in the United States, and he adds something about the work being ongoing. He says the work of deterrence is 24/7 operation.
Right. It's not just build it and forget it. Okay, moving on. The source does include reactions from outside the, let's say, proponents. What does the transcript report about China's view on this?
The source is pretty direct here. It says the Chinese Foreign Ministry put out a statement, and according to this transcript, that statement says, this undermines global balance and stability.
Undermines stability, okay.
Yeah, and that China expresses concern over this, and they actually urge United States to abandon global defense system as soon as possible.
Wow, that's a completely different take presented in the source. China seeing it as destabilizing.
Starkly different, yeah.
How does the Lockheed executive in this transcript respond to that kind of idea, that a defense system might actually undermine stability?
Well, he offers a counter-argument that's really centered on deterrence.
Yeah.
He says, and I'm quoting the source here, the thing that leads to conflict is lack of deterrence.
Okay, lack of deterrence leads to conflict.
Right. And his belief, which he says the administration shares, is that having strong deterrence is best way to deter conflict. Strength prevents war, basically.
So the source shows these two totally opposing views right next to each other. One saying it destabilizes, the other saying strength deters.
Exactly. A fundamental disagreement laid bare in the source.
The source also mentions some skepticism about whether the plan is even possible. What doubts does the transcript bring up?
It notes that some skeptics question the immense cost and ability to create something to defend an entire continent is not realistic.
Which, given the scale and that $175 billion number mentioned earlier,
Right, you can see why people would raise that question.
how does the executive push back against those feasibility concerns within this transcript?
He pushes back pretty directly. He highlights that most of the constituent elements of the system have been demonstrated already in smaller scale around the world.
So it's not all brand new stuff.
That's his point. He adds that many parts have even been proven in combat situations. So his argument, as presented in the source, is that this isn't building everything from zero. It's really a scaling of capability and an integration capability.
Scaling and integrating.
Yeah, and he says it's made possible by those new technologies he mentioned earlier, the networking, the AI, the cloud computing, that let them connect these proven pieces effectively on a much larger scale.
So his argument is the pieces work, and modern tech lets us put them together bigger and better.
That's the gist of his response in the source, yeah.
Okay. And finally, the source comes back to that timeline again, that ambitious timeline. The question gets asked, can it really be up and running within President Trump's second term over the next 3 years?
And the executive's response, as it's quoted, is, well, optimistic. He says because of the start we have with existing capabilities, meaning those proven parts, again, they believe they can rapidly assemble credible deterrent in short period of time.
Rapidly assemble.
Okay. But he also adds something about the future. He says they'll, in parallel work, future technology that will deal with threats as they evolve and keep the system relevant for generations.
So it's like a two-track approach described. Get something up quickly, using current tech, but also develop the next generation stuff alongside it.
That seems to be the layered strategy described in this particular conversation, yes.
So pulling all this together, straight from this one source, what does this mean for you, the listener? Well, it gives you this concentrated look at a huge proposal. You get the massive cost figure presented right up front.
That $175 billion.
You get the specific mix of proven tech and new integration methods described as the how. You get the potential for nationwide job creation highlighted.
Right, the economic angle.
And you get these really clear, clashing views on its impact from other countries, from skeptics, all contained within this single source conversation.
Yeah, understanding these specific points, just as they appear in this transcript, the vision stated, the tech claims, the economic framing, those polarized reactions, that's really how you get a handle on the narrative this source presents about initiatives like this.
Absolutely. We've uh, taken this deep dive into your source of the proposed Golden Dome system. We've unpacked the $175 billion cost mentioned, the described role of tech in industry.
Lockheed Martin's involvement, the AI, the networking.
Right. The potential economic upside highlighted, and those really starkly different perspectives presented.
Yeah.
Proponents talking deterrence and feasibility.
And then the critics on cost and realism and China's very clear statement about global stability being undermined. It's all in there.
It's quite a snapshot captured in that conversation.
It really is.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? Considering that fundamental contrast presented right there in the source material, where one view sees a system like this as absolutely crucial for deterrence, for keeping the peace, while another view presented says, no, this actually undermines global balance and stability. How does that basic disagreement about the very effect of the thing itself shape the whole possibility, or maybe the impossibility, of finding common ground on global security?